We're going to have Chris McKee, who is the Senior Vice President of the National Circle for Indigenous Agriculture and Food. And Chris is going to briefly discuss the National Circle for Indigenous Agriculture and Food and the work they do. A little bit about Chris. Chris is born and raised right here in Saskatchewan, so a good old Saskatchewan boy from a Centennial family farm. With more than 2 decades of experience inspiring and leading teams in designing, developing, and employing organizations-wide initiatives, Chris is no stranger to the challenges of change and the ways to harness the power it can provide. And obviously, this is all about changing people's behaviors when it does come to carbon. With that, I'd like to invite Chris to give us his presentation. Thanks for pinch hitting in such short notice, Chris. Greatly appreciated.
All right. Is this on? We're good? We're live? First, I want to send Colleen's apologies. She is a very close family member that is testing our healthcare system this morning, and our thoughts are with her, and I'm happy to be here in her place. I probably won't do it justice. Probably a lot more eloquent if she were here, but we'll give her a go. I'd just like to first acknowledge that we are on the Treaty 4 lands here, and we honor and respect the treaties in which we stand and work on. I'm pleased to be with you this morning to discuss the excitement around the National Circle for Indigenous Agriculture and Food, the NCIAF. We are nourishing nations and empowering generations. As of 2023, more than 189,000 farms make up Canada's ag sector, but the largest 10% of these farms produce more than 2/3 of the revenue, and really is tribute to that 150 billion, or 7% of Canada's gross GDP. But despite being the original stewards of the land, Indigenous farmers remain underrepresented in the industry, operating about 2.5% of the farms in the country. While many family farms are owned with multiple generations working together, today farmers are faced with challenges that require unique solutions and include Indigenous reconciliation, mitigation of the effects of climate change, and support for Canadians living with food insecurity. According to a report released from FCC earlier this year, increased participation by Indigenous people in agriculture will bridge the gap that represents about 1.5 billion in GDP this year in primary ag. A little bit about the NCIF and what we do. So the NCIF is an Indigenous-led nonprofit that is a business accelerator, offering support through its operations with partnerships with governments, academia, industry, like-minded nonprofits to advance reconciliation. The mission is to accelerate Indigenous agriculture, agribusiness, and food production through the increased access to the creation of programs while honoring the Indigenous traditions, lands, and Mother Earth. We have an independent board of exceptional leaders that have created and growing industry of advisory circle that will be complete. We'll have a voice from all 10 provinces, 3 territories that will guide the program from creation process. And our intention is not to recreate any of the wheels that are already existing, rather create programs that will fill the gaps. There's a lot of programs that are out there right now with minimum requirements, such as you need $50,000 in reportable agriculture income to be accepted into programming. Some of those are not attainable as it goes through. The past 7 months of building this organization has been, to say the least, exciting. The appetite for such an organization across Canada has been overwhelmingly utilized and supported, furthering reconciliation while building bridges with Indigenous communities, agriculture, and food industry. The NCIF promotes building Indigenous capacity with a focus on food security, food sovereignty, and agriculture through the awareness of opportunities, knowledge exchange, education, and skill development. We operate on 3 strategic pillars, and you'll see on the screen: business development, capacity development, and reconciliation. We serve 634 First Nations, Métis, Inuit communities and regions across Canada to support that agri-value, agribusiness sector. As we go further through the slide deck, I'll share a couple of projects that we've been involved in starting and are continuing to support. Capacity differs across the land, and these pillars provide that proactive approach to communication and learning opportunities, knowledge sharing, and connecting the businesses with hands-on learning. With a special focus on youth and our next 7 generations, Reconciliation, Near Truth and Reconciliation Day coming up with Orange Shirt Day, this is a pillar that's woven through the breadth of the organization. Advancing reconciliation efforts in the agriculture industry by facilitating the journey, building relationship, and rebuilding the Indigenous people's role in agriculture and the connection to the land while revitalizing traditions. So what we've been up to since we started in fruition, small and mighty team at the NCIF strives to continue unlocking the potential of business. We're just in the midst of finalizing the development of a web support hub that'll have resources for every province and territory, no matter what stage of the business that you might be in. Finding the information and knowledge, we continue to provide white glove advisory services for accepted projects with high positive impact while creating Indigenous agriculture and Indigenous agriculture business and supporting the community to drive the growth in agriculture. The community-based production, I will share a couple of examples. We've established partnerships, production, high demand for community gardens, greenhouses, regenerative agriculture, farming animals to inspire the youth and provide a healthy, locally at reasonable cost. This is, in February of this year, Ochapowace First Nation reached out to us and they had the desire to have a community garden. That was the end of February. We put the team in place. We got a hold of specialists. We went through the process. We are excited when May long weekend came and they celebrated the first plant of their community garden in Ochap. They had access to some equipment. They didn't have access to people to run the equipment. So, old 6'2" here went out and drove a 1973 Massey 4-wheel drive tractor and a 14-foot cultivator to do that initial pass on the land. It doesn't matter what it takes, we will get it done and we will get these projects invigorated. We coordinated successful funding opportunities through the Agri-Spirit Fund. Members of the community, elders, the Kataic, and garden youth supervisors gathered to celebrate and commence that gardening. Some of the other programs that have been involved, we're working on the development of several programs will be released. One of them being our Nourishing Nations Empowering Generations program that will be out in the spring of 2025. It's going to be piloted in 10 communities across Canada. What that's going to look like is a program that is going to go into schools, and every single recipe book will have recipes from that community and the elders, so it's going to be their program. We are going to supply the containers and the seed and the education for those schools so that they can roll out and advance that opportunity. Too often what we find is there's grants out there for these great initiatives and there's 3 or 4 people in the community that are really excited to do that, and we put up infrastructure, we do something, but we didn't build the pipeline of those youth to come in and take that over when those people get tired. This program is going to help accelerate that. There are 2 other programs that are currently developing, and we will be able to share those with you at a later date when they're released. As with any organization, getting the word out across the land and attending and speaking at events such as this has been very busy, and the travel does not appear to be slowing down anytime soon. I'm sharing just a very few small that we're pleased to attend or lead as we go through these different stages of growth. And I encourage you to go on our website or sign up to our newsletter to find out what's happening. The official announcement of the NCIF happened in February 13th of this year in Ottawa at the Future of Food Conference, and this was the first time an Indigenous panel had ever been on that stage. In June, we led the first annual Intertribal Indigenous Ag Trade Mission with the USDA. There's never been an Indigenous agriculture trade mission to Canada before. Having the international edge is important, We'll also be attending the Tri-National Accord with Mexico, US, and Canada in November in Washington. It is vital that the trade routes, relations, and advancing that Indigenous agriculture. IFMA, we hosted the International Farm Management Association tour. Took them around, showed them some stuff, took them out to the community garden after where they actually took part in some of the planting in that garden. July, we were at a FACTS camp with Sioux Valley Dakota Nation in Manitoba, and really those focuses there were on that farming, climate change, sustainability, and the youth. And finally, there's our Reconcilia Ag Advisor right there, Terry Lara. But with Terry, we hosted the first annual Indigenous Field Day at Iharf and Indian Head and headed to Cowess's after that for an afternoon tour. It was well attended with lots of follow-up conversations and advancing the opportunities across. And where would we be without our partners? FCC Committed to Reconciliation did the lead work to create the idea of the NCIF. They're a founding partner. And every day we have more people that are reaching out to join us from industry, academia, government, all to move forward with ESG considerations and having Indigenous partnerships and prioritizing environmental sustainability.